South in the shoebox. Einstein, oh, I love him. Einstein and I have a lot of fun together. I think one of the most shake up my world kind of experiences came at, I think, about 30 together. You know what, my first memory of meeting Karen, you know, you can't grow up in the South as a person of color and not be affected by, especially at that time, segregation. The Green Book. Owner, my mother was a professor.
Marshall in the middle.
Audri Scott Williams, Reverend, Pastor. What title do you like embrace? Is there a title that you embrace?
Whatever comes naturally to people.
Right.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought to be a leader, to be a spiritual leader. You've stepped into that role. Did you always? What is it like to be, a pastor?
Yeah. First of all, it's very fulfilling. And you have to wear a lot of hats.
I bet.
Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different need. Everyone has a different way that they want to express their spirituality. And I find that as a pastor, not to judge any of that, but to find a way to fold that into what are the teachings of our Spiritual Enrichment Center. What are the things that make us flourish, make us grow and evolve. I love the idea of diverse thinking, diverse ideas, and then figuring out how we put that together and yet maintain the integrity of who we are.
Where are you from?
I was born in Montclair, New Jersey, lived there for about 3 weeks, and my father was from Fayetteville, North Carolina, 8 generations, and my mother was from Hampton, Virginia. And so we came south and started, they moved back down to the south. Yeah.
Moved back to Fayetteville?
Back to Fayetteville.
Wow. I've spent many, many years in
I
Fayetteville.
Bet you did.
I'm not a native, but being in the 82nd and stationed at Fort Bragg, I know the area well. What was it like? Your father was a prominent business owner in Fayetteville, right?
Yes. My father was a business owner. My mother was a professor, high school and college. My father's grandfather was actually one of the founding presidents for Fayetteville State University. And so needless to say, academics were very much stressed in our family. It wasn't a matter of, are you going to go to college? It was a matter of which college are you going to go to, you know. So very academically engaged. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had lots of different businesses, he and his friends, and had a very strong social connection. He really believed in the beloved community. He didn't care who you were. So our house became the house where probably half the young people growing up in troubled homes lived. It was not unusual to come home and try to jump over feet to try to get to your bedroom because Dad had taken somebody in. I remember one young man, Gerald, who came to live with us for the weekend, left 3 years later. So that's the kind of environment I grew up in. And one of the things that I recently acquired is the Green Book, and found my dad's restaurant, Arthur Seafood Grill, which he built himself, in the Green Book, had been in the Green Book for 7 years. And for anyone who doesn't know what the Green Book is, before integration, if you were of color going anywhere in the South, there was a Green Book to let people know where it was safe to go, usually African-American owned businesses. And so for 7 years, he was a part of that. So that made me really proud.
It is amazing to think about what our forefathers forged.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that now you and Karen continue in a lot of ways. I don't know, it's just got to be a neat thing to be a part of something that is in its own way revolutionary and in its own way sad. Right? That it's got to be that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that it was that way in a time when people weren't allowed to even associate with one another, and you had to have things like green books and there are. Did you ever deal with those racial tensions growing up? It's obvious you had to, right?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, you know, you can't grow up in the South as a person of color and not be affected by, especially at that time, segregation. My brother and I were the very first African American students to integrate a white school, elementary school. The very first. Can you imagine what it must have felt like? 3 young kids going into an all-white school. Not, I mean, just this was new. It was a phenomenal. Walking
Right.
through picket lines and
Oh,
mothers
wow.
with signs and all. So it had a profound impact. It was almost like shock initially, but as time went on, it settled down, and we still were dealing with different issues, but that's part of our journey. You asked what's important to me. What's important to me is building community. And you don't build community by just focusing on the good. You have to look at where are the scabs and how do you lift those scabs in a loving way that allows community to come together. I always say create an environment, create something phenomenal, and then invite everybody in and just watch what happens. We saw that just recently at our home with the tornado. I thought it was so beautiful. At one point I sat back and I was just looking at everyone that was gathered. All colors, genders, ages, all working with the purpose of helping us to be able to heal our land, fix what could be fixed, but really allowing us to be able to be comfortable. That sense of loving, that was the beloved community in action. And so that's what I strive for. I love to mix it all up. Let's get us together. Let's, just by the nature of building relationships, we begin to break down barriers. And that's one of the things I learned from my parents. It's all about breaking down the barriers. And I guess that's just the way I grew up.
Tell me about your mom.
Mom, phenomenal woman, college professor, drama. She was head of the drama department. And so she had a flair for the English language. Believe me, you better speak right. And she hated mediocrity. If you're coming into my space, then you're going to be your best.
Okay.
And that was something she always stressed in us. And she never allowed us to say what we can't do. Okay. And so that gives you an idea of her strength and her courage. I remember when we, after the civil rights, they were very active in that. In the 70s, early 70s, they moved to the Caribbean. They're just exhausted, wanted a new look on life. They went down on vacation and decided, okay, we're moving, which was pretty phenomenal, right? And here I am, just sort of beginning to bloom and get friends and so forth. I'm like, I don't want to move anywhere, but we moved to St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and Mom worked both at the high school and at the University of Virgin Islands. But Mom had this, I'm gonna give you a really good sense of Mom. She believed that she could go anywhere she wanted to go and do whatever she wanted to do. That was just it. There was no way of saying what you can't do. So the most beautiful beaches were in the areas of the very wealthy, and they would have private, and do not enter. So Mom, every day, when we went once a week to the beach, we would go to those beaches, and her sisters came down and said, Natalie, you can't go there. That says private beach. She says, no, honey, that's Pravati Beach. Come on, let's go. So that was so she was always that way. Very beautiful woman. And in her latter years developed Alzheimer's. But she went all the way around the world with us, traveled with us around the world for over 4 years. And she stole the show. I mean, here she was with Alzheimer's, very, very non-communicative verbally, right. But she stole the show. We show up and it was like, you all go do what you got to do. We got Mom, So that's Mom's personality. She was a writer and very passionate, very loving person.
You remember tension when you were a kid? You get in fights? Did you? What type of a kid were you with your, brothers? Tell me about brothers and sisters and all that stuff.
Well, I had a brother. We were 15 months apart. He was older than I am, yeah. And he was the star athlete, did everything. I was very quiet, always observing, reading kind of person. So he was the spotlight one. Okay. And I did in the summers go up with my mother's family, and I used to swim. I was always an excellent swimmer. I wanted to swim the English Channel by the time I was 16, but they wouldn't let me. Anyway, But I did do underwater ballet, and so I got to have that experience of being gaining a certain notoriety for another young man and I. We had a couples team, and we did a lot of underwater. So that was my little momentary claim to fame. Yeah, but my brother was awesome. He was beautiful. He was always into mischief, but he was a hell of an athlete.
And you were the reader.
I was
underwater ballet. You got to talk to me about underwater ballet. Karen can't even swim.
I know, right?
And you're over here doing underwater ballet.
Yeah. I don't know how we did that at Hampton Institute in the summers. That's where my mother graduated from college.
Okay.
And so we would go to spend the time with my grandmother, and we would all be in swimming classes. It was mandatory in our little crew. All the young people had to be able to swim. And one day, one of the instructors said, "Would you be interested in doing underwater ballet?" Why not? Try it.
Yeah.
I'll try it, Yeah, so that's how that happened. And then from there, when we moved to the islands, I did a lot of open ocean swimming. And a cousin of mine and I, we would swim way out. And still with that passion, I'm going to swim the English Channel. But life took off, and I didn't have that opportunity.
So why the English Channel? Why? I mean,
was
come
a
on,
big
you're
thing.
you're in North Carolina.
Yeah, but at my age,
Okay.
for a woman to do,
Okay.
and for the first African American
Oh,
woman to
okay,
actually swim the
okay.
channel, that was a big deal.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
you didn't see too many of us back there swimming
I
the English
guess, yeah.
Channel. So I wanted to have that opportunity, but I'm over it.
You're over it now.
I'm well over it. So if anyone says, "Oh, it's never too late," I'm over it.
We can swim that Chattahoochee over here if you want.
Exactly. I think I'm good now. But I love the water. I used to think I was a mermaid when I was a little kid because I loved to swim in the ocean. Yeah. So anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was it like to graduate high school and those kind of thing and go off on your own? Did you realize that? How did that go? How did you break free?
You're asking me questions, and the answers are never going to be what you think they are.
You think so? Okay, I love it. I love it.
I graduated in St. Croix from high school.
Okay.
And what happened, I was in the 11th grade, and it was the end of the school year, and I used to work in the library. And because I worked in the library, I read all the time, or I was involved in different projects. They'd let me take whatever classes I wanted, so I would just always be busy. So they came to my mom and I in the 11th grade and said, "Natalie, your daughter doesn't have any more classes to take. She's taken all the classes. And we recommend that we just graduate her, And so I graduated. And then when the SAT scores came back, I was a valedictorian. So I wasn't expecting to graduate. I thought I had another year.
Right.
And so I graduated. I was 16 at the time, and got an opportunity to go to the University of Tampa, and that's where I went to college.
Yay.
Yeah. So that was my college graduation. My big claim to fame was I did a very strong speech that night at graduation and called out some of the politicians and
Oh, really?
things for
So it
their
started-
lack of interest in our public school system. So that's probably where I started my first radical speech.
It's like valedictorian. Let me tell you something.
right. So that was, that was kind of interesting.
Well, so have you always been a writer?
Yes. I've been writing and keeping journals since I learned how to read and write, I guess. Yeah.
Tell me about your book.
Just one is, a couple of them are about just my mystical journey in life.
Okay.
And I did one called the Awakening the Heart of the Beloved Community.
Mm-hmm.
I started out wanting to write a book about the beloved community, and as I started writing it, I realized all these stories. I was interviewing people, and I said, "Look, forget trying to figure it out. Get the stories." And so Awakening the Heart of the Beloved Community was different people's interpretation of what that meant for them, how that fit into their life, and from 16 to 101.
I love it.
Yeah. So that was great. And I wrote a book called Embers of Glory. I am now rewriting it, so the second version of or adaptation of it will come out at the end of February. And that was a book. One of the things I didn't mention is our family was very much a part of the Episcopalian Church. My ancestors actually were part of the ones who built the church. So there was a very strong, on both my mother's side and my father's side, we were all Episcopalians. And I loved that church. It was so beautiful. The stained glass windows, that cherry wood, you know, it was just beautiful. I loved the rituals. I loved the, you know, just the service. I don't know what it was. It just grasped me at a very young age. And in the 1990s, there were over 100 black churches in the South that were set on fire, that were destroyed by fire. And there wasn't really that much information talking about it. The FBI declared it to be not to be a conspiracy. And I was thinking, if 100 churches, if 100 banks burned up all of a sudden, that would kind of be a conspiracy, right? So I wrote a novel about the history of that the black church played. Most people don't realize that the only place black people could gather before integration without being challenged, let's say, was in the churches. So churches became the meeting place for whatever needed to happen. The meeting place for the civil rights movement in many cases. It became the center of the entrepreneurial world for black professionals and those that had money. And so I just wrote about these different occurrences and different things that happened, just stories that I picked up along the way. Some are true, some are fictional, but based on historical fact. So that book's going to come out, the second edition will come out in February.
Yay, I'm excited.
Yeah, I was too. I love that story.
That's awesome. What is it that touches you personally that is something, you talk about beloved community, you talk about getting stories out. What is it you feel your mission is? Do you have something that drives you?
What drives me is to learn, to be on the path of loving. That's the most important thing for me, to be able to love through any situation. Even those that are very challenging, that can be very frightening, whatever the case may be, but to be a demonstration of how love can move through anything. And I think for me that was very critical when we walked around, all of our walks, 17 years of walking, and it was put love first and everything else will be okay. And that was a demonstration that happened in our lives because we didn't have the money to really go further than about 2 weeks. And yet we went around the world. We were gifted with, Mom needed to have a stable environment when we crossed the country. And the night before we're leaving for the walk, one of our dearly beloved elders says, go to the such and such car lot and pick up your RV. Natalie has to have a home. How does that happen?
I love it.
So when love goes first and we walk in love, not in judgment, not thinking we got to fix something, not think we got the answers, but just show up, I've just seen miracle things happen. So I'm just trying to learn how to be more loving.
Can't argue with that, can you? I love it.
I hope not.
No, no.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to make a conscious effort to try to be, more loving. Tell me about the time when you had one of the longest nights of your life, when someone was injured or someone was hurt or something scary was going on. Do you remember a time when you were concerned?
Recently.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Our community of Cottonwood, Alabama was just hit by a tornado, and it was a pretty rough one. It actually came into Cottonwood right down our street. And the sounds that when I hear Karen and John and the family talk about what it sounded like, just really grasp me. And what happened for me is I have no memory. I don't remember the sound. I blocked out. I have a mental block on everything that happened in that 15 minutes. And that has really concerned me, So what did I do? I mean, in this moment of critical, your moves make a big difference, I just blacked it out. I think I was not able to deal with the trauma, with the potential trauma, the idea. I mean, it really was sitting right on us. I could see in my son's reactions and all. So that has to be one of the most profound moments that I can recall Although I will admit, we landed in India in the middle of the Taj bombing. We've been in hurricanes, earthquakes. We've walked and had packs of wild dogs come after us. So we've had quite a bit of excitement along what you might consider trauma. But I think the most traumatic for me was what happened just here recently in our community, not just for our own conditions and the fear of it, the power of that tornado, but just when we drive through our town and to see how much devastation and just to look at how people are coping. And it's not a singular thing. People who are doing well are coming together. You know, even you might not know someone, you know, but it doesn't matter. You're just trying to figure out how do we make this work for everybody. I was in the town office yesterday, and we're just all looking at how do we collectively look at what experiences we have that can be used to help us get resources and so forth. So that's the beauty to me of a major disaster. It is that people come together. They let down anything that's separating them and just really try to pull in, because survival is critical, you know?
It's neat to live in a small community like Cottonwood that never has any excuse to get together.
Yes.
Until a disaster happens.
Exactly.
And then when a disaster happens, all of a sudden you do have an excuse and a reason.
That's right.
And fortunately, I guess that's a good thing, or maybe it's a bad thing.
Well, I think it's a good thing. I love the way when Hurricane Michael hit, and then now the tornado, just community people just would get in their trucks with their saws and just go wherever they were needed and help each other out. To me, that's the beloved community in action. Unfortunately, I wish we could not just have to wait for a disaster,
Right.
that we were always in that space of looking out for one another. Yeah.
So I'm 55 years old. Not once has anybody said you need to go walk around the world, or you need to go have aspirations to, swim the English Channel or anything like. What is it that makes you go? What is it that drives you? What is it that gives you that oomph? Where does that come from? Is it your mom? Is it your dad?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up, they pushed us into the impossible, fearlessly so. They always stressed that there was nothing we weren't able to do. If our heart and soul wanted it, that's what it was. And they would support us. They would do whatever to help us out, but they'd let us find our own path and then put the energy behind it. That was a powerful lesson. I can't ever remember my mother saying can't. In fact, she had this thing anytime I say, "Mom, I can't," she said, "There's no such word as can't." It wasn't even allowed in our home, right? Now, but that also comes with issues or concerns too, because you're always pushing the boundaries, right? But I always felt that if I'm going to be on this earth for whatever time I have, I want to live it. I want to grab it by its tail and bring in everything that I can. I want to, when it's time for me to go, I think I heard Oprah say one time, "Don't cry for me. I'm going to high five St. Peter on my way in,"
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I think it would be such a waste for me to be here for 70, 80, 90, 100, however many years, and on my dying bed think, gosh, I didn't do half the stuff I wanted to do.
Right.
I want to do it all. I want to go beyond the boundaries of what we often lock ourselves into. There is nothing, any of us are capable of the impossible, or we wouldn't be here. I think this is the school of learning through all the different experiences, just exactly what that God stuff is that's inside of us. So going back to your first question, what does it mean to be a minister to me? It means bringing that same energy in. How can we be a demonstration of God in everything we do, even when we mess it up? Messing up sometimes a great opportunity for us to figure it out, right? If you don't mess it up, you're never going to figure it out. Most of the times we can get caught in everybody else's story because we didn't take a chance to go in whatever direction we may feel. So in all the things that I've done in my life, they've really come through dreams, through a passion that rises up in me, to to do exactly what it is I feel that I'm being called to do. And thank goodness there are people with a whole lot of sanity that have supported me along the way.
Keep you grounded.
Keep me grounded, yeah, and just take care of us. We've been in everything that we've done, and I say we because Karen's sitting there, my partner Karen. There's generally a group of 7 of us that have done most of the core work, but we've just been blessed. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Things that happen to us. If I can share one story, I don't know.
No, we don't have time for it. Okay, go ahead.
We were in Mexico, in Coba, I believe, and we got there. We had no money, no food. We had this little RV because, again, we had to get rid of the big one because we couldn't cross the border with it. It was just, no, we needed a little something. This lady gave it to us on our way when we didn't think we were going to have a way to do it, right? That's another story. I wanted to get to this one. So one of our walkers, the youngest one on the team, it was her birthday, and we're in Coba. We have no money, no nothing. We don't even have a place to plug in the RV to try to charge up stuff, right? So we're like, what are we going to do? So Tony, who's the only male in this group, goes out walking. Probably needed to get away from us for a minute, right? But he comes back and he says, I found a place. They said we could plug in and we can even go, we can even use some of the services in this hotel. And Tony's from Nigeria. So we were like, oh, Tony, that's so wonderful. We have a place we can park the RV on the side of the road. Well, we get there and it's Club Med. And they just treated us like royalty. We were swimming at midnight in the pool, looking at the stars, and we're like, Shondell, you manifested well.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Just goes from rags to riches with just one person taking a little walk.
That's right.
And the doors open up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brag on your family for a second.
Oh, I love that.
I met Ranger John.
You met John. I have 3 sons, my 3 sons, and they came down when the tornado hit. The 2 came down. John is always in and out with us. He has a transportation company. And I mean, they worked from the time they had 14-hour drive down from Maryland and got out of the car, literally grabbed the saw, the chain, was it called? Chainsaws, and started work. And didn't stop until they headed back. Got into Maryland just in time for a snow blizzard there. Now I think he said up to 8 to 10 feet of snow.
Whoa!
Yeah, so they haven't really had the opportunity to stop and recover. But what I just wanted to say is to have a loving family like that. My ex-husband John actually brought the generator for us, and the whole family came together, and that's what is so important. My son's love for their mom, was able to bring them there, and they just pampered us. They wouldn't let us do anything, so we just walked around trying to make people think we were busy, but they wouldn't. If they saw us pick up something, Mama Karen, go sit down. Mom, go in the house, But they wanted to do all that they could, and without them, we wouldn't be where we are right now because they made miracles happen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So, what was it like when they were younger? Do you remember?
Oh my
remember
gosh.
raising 3 boys?
Yes, I do. 3 very funny boys. John, the oldest, was always I can climb the mountain, I can do this, I can do that, and I remember at 4 years old, maybe 5 years old, we were in the Caribbean, and he was on the top of the mountain in those, what are those 3-wheeler things they had?
Tricycle?
Those little, it wasn't a tricycle, it was the...
ATV, like a
something like a
three-wheeler
little,
kind of thing?
Yeah. And it's made out of plastic,
Oh,
the
okay.
big wheel.
Okay, a big wheel.
Yeah,
gotcha.
big wheel. He decides from the top of the mountain down to the ocean, he was going to ride his big wheel. And he did. About scared me to death. So that's John. If it's going to jump off a ledge, it's going to be John. Probably why he ended up in Ranger.
Right.
And then Nick was a little more reserved, a little more shy about following his big brother into these moments. But he was the funniest. And then Michael was always the serious one, my youngest one. He started carrying a briefcase when he was 3. And so,
Is it all of his important papers?
yeah, with
Just
all
in
his
case he
important
needs to-
papers, you know, he's going to be whatever. And then, so we used to call him Dr. Michael. But the funny thing is, we also had a theater company. And so we used theater. They were in sports, and then we had a theater company with all the guys and, you know, anybody who wanted to be. It became a very big thing, and they got to perform all over the world. Michael, John, and Nick all went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Michael was for painting, but he was a bass player at a very young age. John was a trumpet player, and Nick was a percussionist. And so they got to even play at the White House. They got to play, I mean, all over the place. It was nothing for, anytime Congress had something special going on, they'd call for the kids to come and play. They were jazz enthusiasts, so they were, you know, they were really, really talented. So extremely talented. They grew up. Somehow they survived their parents, allowing them to do all these things, you know, and then became the most conservative three young men.
Really?
Yes. You know, they've all been in the military, and yeah, they're just wonderful.
So what's your hidden talent? What's your secret hobby, something that nobody knows about? You secretly fold paper and make origami or something?
No, I don't know. Let's see, what do I secretly do? I love crystals.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I always have a crystal garden somewhere in the on my property.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's probably one thing I do. I can't think of what I don't. My secret talent is just finding the talent in other people and helping to bring it out. That's what I love. Yeah.
Has there been a situation or something that's happened in your life you're really proud of? It's something that maybe you didn't even do it, but something that makes you proud, something you can point to others, you know, like, I don't know.
Wow, so many.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was really proud. I don't even know if that's the right word. When Karen went through her healing challenge, and I've never seen anybody do this before, but she would sing the whole time. She had her chants and her mantras. She never complained. She never did any, I mean, she was just so on it and so in it. She's the first person I ever heard say, yeah, when I would go get my, was it the chemo, I think? And yeah, and she would say, I would just see it as liquid light coming into my body.
Right.
And she'd sing and just keep going. She left there looking better than she did when she got there. I'm like, okay, I'm learning something here, you know, and she that to me was a phenomenal moment or period in my life, because if I'm watching her go through all this and never complaining, nothing, you know, just I'm getting a tune up, and after this is on, I'll be in much better shape. It taught me a lot. You know, when you're faced with adversity, you can either let that consume you or you can rise above it. And she rose above it and taught me how to rise above it as well.
I think it's neat that you both use a very similar story to talk about, you know, things that are challenges and different framework about it, right? We just heard that from Karen. That's how she tells, and how she appreciates you as being a strength that she was able to stand on. And here you are saying that she's a strength, you know, for going through the struggles the way she did. And it just gives me the chill bumps to think about the love that those connections and that you share through those tough struggles, right?
Yeah.
We never grow when we're riding down the highway and everything's sunny and the car's running fine and we got plenty of gas. We learn about things when we have the flat tire or the engine won't start or we're having tough times, right? Has there been tough times for you personally? Has there been like shadows of, you know, rough times that you've gone through? Obviously there is.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's remarkable that you would want to talk about for yourself personally?
Let me think. I think one of the most shake up my world kind of experiences came at I think about 35 or 36. I can't remember exactly what year it was. I had a mild heart attack, and somehow that shook me in a way of, it was like a gateway opened, and I heard this voice say, what was it? Just like, go, do what you're called to do, and everything's going to be okay. So here I am, a young, very young professional, dean at a college, you know, really worked really hard to do that. And all of a sudden, I get the sense that that's not what I'm here to do. I didn't quite know what I was here to do because this really shook my world. But that whole let go and let God kind of theme kept coming up, so I resigned from that. As a result of that, my marriage broke up. You know, I had to walk away from, a very nice lifestyle and start life all over again, living in someone's attic until I could get enough resources together to move into an apartment with Nick, my middle son. John had gone on to the military at that time, and Mike was young, so Mike stayed with his dad, although he went back and forth, and Nick stayed with me. So it was like starting life all over again and trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Who am I really? Why am I here? And what is it that I've been released now to do? And so that was the most profound experience of my life. I had many different elders who sort of adopted me and pushed me, you know, and into indigenous spirituality and different traditions. And that was quite interesting, that I got to travel around the world with the Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, documenting elders who all of them are gone now. If we hadn't done that, there wouldn't even be documentation on some of this work. But I had no clue that's what I was being called to do. And as I was in the middle of it, because it was such a switch, you know, and I said to one of the elders one time, I don't know if I can do this. And he asked me why. I said, because it's making me crazy, you know. He says, my dear, it takes a mad, mad woman to do this work. So I had to relearn my whole mental process, if you will. I had to reprogram myself to, if I was really going to do what I felt I was being called to do, I had to truly let go and let God. And I had to allow the experiences that presented themselves to guide my footprints. And it's just been phenomenal.
What was it like to put yourself out for political office and to run for? That's got to be a nightmare. I think
I had an insane moment. But you know what my passion was? My passion, I wanted to enter the race because I wanted certain things to be talked about.
Okay.
There were certain things. If you get close to politics, there's usually about five issues that everybody speaks on, right? And there's a lot that's not spoken on. So I wanted to be able to break some of those barriers and bring things for the table. And it was insane and beautiful and wonderful and all. I mean, we traveled every day from here to Montgomery to all over our district at the time. So it was nonstop the whole time. And the scariest moment was when we began to pick up momentum. I'm like, wait a minute now. I didn't say I wanted to run. I didn't want to win. I just want to run. And but we had a lot of fun. I learned a lot about Alabama. I learned about the passion of people. We hear sometimes such negative stories, but we had the most beautiful group of people who supported us. It was growing. There was momentum building. And even still, there's a sign down there that the person who owns the building won't take it down because they keep thinking I'm going to run again. So it was good. It was a learning experience for me. Would I do it again? No. But for that time, it was the right action.
Isn't it neat how you're called to do things that it's obvious a season in your life, right?
Yes.
It's not your whole life.
Yes.
But definitely we go through seasons.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You had a season as the pastor here at
Yes.
this church.
Yes.
And you've recently left because you're wanting to do other things, bigger things. Can I ask what those kind of things are? I know you've got the book coming out. You just talked about that. What other things are you getting ready to do?
Well, sure. Let me just say, being here as a pastor was just really a beautiful experience for me. And then shortly after taking on that responsibility, COVID came. So then it was moving through that. It was a lot of things to move through. and the community here is just awesome. So I want to say that, because me leaving was not because I was upset about anything. Me leaving was I had to step into another area that was going to require more time, and that wasn't fair to the center. Again, dreams. I had this dream just before I resigned to take on a journey called the Redemption Voyage. And this is a journey involving the historically black colleges and universities, graduate students who are involved in STEAM programs, and taking them, a group of 18 to 24 young people, on a journey of a lifetime. It would start out of Mobile, where the last ship that brought Africans into slavery here in 1860, after it was illegal to do so, that was the last known ship to come in, bringing Africans to be enslaved. And my dream was to reverse the cycle of the slave ships, carry these young STEAM and STEM project, young people who are doing projects. They'll have very specific scientific studies they're doing on the ship, and sail back to Africa going the opposite way. So to Benin, up the coast to Ghana, to the Gambia, Senegal, coming back through the door of no return, and then back into the U.S. in 2026 at the celebration of our independence. And so the energy coming back with that idea of we call it illuminating freedom. And so that's the journey in its short version. But I just imagine the scientific studies that are going to be doing, most of them, well, a lot of them have to do, well, in the science area, climate change. They'll be doing some studies on coastal areas, regions, and the impact on these coastal regions as the water tables are rising. There are, oh my goodness, engineering projects where the engineering students will be creating a portal that allows students from anywhere in the world to be able to tap in on a live feed at any time, 24 hours a day, and be a part of the experience. In the arts, there'll be art projects that are started by the students, but it will be finished by the students in Africa, because we're doing a collaboration between universities here and universities there. And so math, they're doing all the statistics and data to see what we did well, what didn't work, whatever it is that needs to be studied for the outcome. And yeah, so that's the project. It's huge. We won't launch the ship until the end of 2025. We're still working to raise the money. It's a very expensive project, millions, you know, and so just the ship alone, you know. So we're working to raise funds for it and to get the right, make sure we have the right ship and the right crew to, you know, get us there safely and get us back. Yeah. So that's called
That's
Redemption.
exciting.
It's exhilarating. It's amazing.
I want to do it.
Well, come on.
Yeah,
Come on, bring your drones
that
and
would be a
everything
blast.
else, right?
Yeah. That would be a blast. That would be a blast.
Yeah.
So how do you see the rest of your journey going? Like if we were to say this is 2024, and what does the rest of your kind of journey look like? Is there a trajectory you're on? You know, are we going to see? You were just on a phone call with Oprah the other night, right?
Yeah.
You have been described by almost everybody that I've ever heard describe you as bigger than Dothan, Alabama. You know, you're talking about Redemption Voyage and all those kinds of things. Do you have a trajectory that you're on that you see yourself as?
No,
You
not
don't,
at
huh?
all.
Okay.
No, I've never set out on a plan. I did the planning when I was in the academic world, you know, when I was in that world, you know. But when I decided to follow the voices, that internal voice or the spirit voice, I just wait till the next call. Yeah.
So take a minute, if you don't mind, and tell us a little bit about your spirituality. Many times I ask the question to soldiers, there's no atheist in foxholes, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're calling on somebody,
you're calling
right?
on something, right? What's your spirituality like? How do you classify what keeps you going, late at night when the tornado's coming and you're able to block it out? What is it that allows you to do those things?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question.
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it is.
Well, I believe that everything here is God. Everything in me, around me, whatever, whether I understand it or not, is very, irrelevant to the experience, right?
Amen.
Obviously, right?
Right.
And so I always believe that whatever it is that I go through, I'm walking closer towards God, because everything is going to teach me something else, something more, something greater. So I believe every single experience, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, is a part of my journey. And so my spirituality is creating and allowing space for God to reside in me.
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think there's any limit to what we're capable of. I don't believe that there's anything I can't do if I'm called to do it. So my spirituality is, I just keep waiting for God to tell me, do this, do that, whatever, whatever. And I trust that. It takes a lot of faith to do some of the things that we've done, because you don't have the safety belts. You don't have always the resources. You might be going into very dangerous situations. I mean, I can't tell you, I almost drowned in the Black Ocean, the Black Beach in Hawaii. I've been close to the edge on a few things. And, but I've never had an experience where God wasn't there. And so I also learned that when I make a mistake, it's an opportunity for me to learn more about myself. And so how can I take every situation and learn to be more loving? Even those difficult things, I mean, there are a lot of difficult things on this world sometimes we go through. And yet, through all the experiences that I've had, my spirituality is love. That's my spirituality. And I believe you just keep making the circle bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And
are there books or things that you look to that provide you guidance? Is there a particular poem or author or something that you get inspiration from?
Oh, I get inspiration from everyone and everything. I can be sitting right here right now and some little ant crawls down and I'm watching how it's moving and I'm inspired. Books, I've read so many books, I love Howard Thurman.
Okay.
I love Maya Angelou, Alice Walker. I love Ernest Holmes. Gosh, I could go on and on.
Right.
Einstein. Oh, I love him. Einstein and I have a lot of fun together, okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I read all the time. But you know what I think? I think that when you look at the collective library, that whatever you have access to, right? The books that you read, the articles you read, all of that is just feeding us. And so I kind of I love to read, I love to quote, I love to get quotes, but I feel like all of that is being directed in an internal way for all of us. It's just like people are going to come and go, and some people can say stuff so well, it can leave an impact on you. Get it, grasp it, if it works. But all of that collective knowledge and collective vision of things is just who we are. It's already in us. You know, and I think when I read these books, I'm like, oh, that's waking up this, that's waking up that part of me, that's waking up the, you know, and then some things I read and I'm like, ooh, that's telling me why I shouldn't do things that way or what have you. So books for me, and I get this from my mother. My mother was never without a book. I mean, we would have to bang on the bathroom door. Mom, stop reading. We got to go to the bathroom. She wouldn't like me saying that because she was
That's so
very
cute.
much the lady,
That's so cute.
darling, as she would say. But yeah, so I love books, Will. I love everything from The Cat in the Hat to deep, you know, thinking John Henry Clark and just so many others. Yeah.
So this series is, you know, Marshall in the Middle, Heroes I Know. Who are the heroes that you know? Who are your heroes? Who was the ones that, you know, that inspired you to be the person that you are?
Well, I obviously would have to say my mother and my father. I think those that I grew up with, because they were always pushing the edge.
Right.
Even my grandfather, you know, always pushing the edge. Never allowed you to be, you know, it's a funny story with my grandfather, my father's father, John Austin Williams. He was very well respected in Fayetteville. And yet, when we would go out, it was customary if you walked up to a white person, you would lower your eyes. Well, we were never allowed to do that. Never.
Okay.
And if he wanted to drink at a white fountain, he drank at a white fountain. So he demonstrated for us, I mean, that was character. That was, and he wasn't doing it, I mean, it was a revolutionary act, but he was doing it because he was thirsty, and he didn't feel that because he was black one way or another made a difference, right? So that taught us a lot of things about what we accept into our lives and what we don't, and when courage really speaks beyond the words that we, you know, that we say. So that, my grandfather was very important. My grandmother too. You know, you're bringing up lots of memories. My grandmother was Irish and native. But she was called Redhead Sally because she had a temper like you wouldn't believe, and she did not like injustice. But during the Civil Rights Movement, because she looked like she was white, she would always go to places where things were being planned and then bring that information back.
Oh, really? Double agent, watch out.
Well, that took audacity.
Yeah,
That took courage even on her part, you know. And so I have to say, you know, my inspiration in life comes from a set of characters in the book of life, you know, in my family, but also the community. Karen has been a major part of helping me to stay balanced. One of the things about making a decision to let go of everything and follow the path of how I feel God is calling me is that you don't have the security blankets that normalcy can give you. And so when I get a little on edge about, you know, am I doing the right thing and what? And she just says, where is it coming from? She just keeps reminding me so that I can keep doing what I'm here to do. I probably couldn't have done half of what I've done if I hadn't had Karen. I believe Karen and I coming together was divinely orchestrated.
So say more about that if you don't mind. Tell me about that how that worked, how that came together, how you guys formed a partnership that has lasted so long and been so productive. You've walked around the world, you've run a church, you produced albums, you've done all kinds of things together, right?
Yes, and thanks for saying that, because for every book that's been written, every movement we've done, Karen's written the theme song for it. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. You were a part of her latest
I'm so proud of that too.
Yes, we loved it. We came together, you know what, my first memory of meeting Karen, I was in Atlanta for, oh gosh, the Whole Life Expo. They used to have those, and they had a book writers part of that. And I was coming down the escalator, and I saw this table full of angels, and because she was really into angels at that time, so she would find these angels and she would sell them, right? So I'm looking at that, and I look at her, and something just clicked, but I didn't think of it in any particular kind of way except like pay attention, you know? And so she came when I did my books, my talk. And at that time, I was organizing to walk the Appalachian Trail and the Underground Railroad trails, and inviting people, if they felt called, to let me know. They were welcome to be a part of it. And so Karen just got hooked and decided this was her journey too. And that's how we came to know one another, hiking the Appalachian Trail. Yeah.
I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Yeah. Did y'all look for the bear poop with the little bells in it and stay away from them?
No, actually, we slept in the bear's den. Our first night
love
on
it.
the trail, there were 7 of us, my youngest son, Michael, as well. And it rained all day. So it's nothing like starting a journey like that in the mountain, climbing a mountain, right? It's raining, you're cold, and we find this spot. It looks so great. We pop the tents up, we get inside. It's so cold that we try to get as many people in the tent as we can, right? And the next morning we wake up and there's this sign, "Do not sleep here, bear's den."
Oh, wow.
And there was bear fur everywhere. We should have
Oh,
known
no.
better, right? But, and I always say that's a great way for us to start out, because it must have been a loving mama bear decided she was going to take care of us that night. So anyway, yeah, but that's how we met and really got to know each other well, dealing with all the different things that happen when you're walking like that. So we got to know each other very well, become very good friends. And then 4 years later, we decided, we're doing all these things together. Maybe it's time for us to come together.
I love it. Yeah.
And that's how we became partners and got married. I think in 2000. Well, we got married. Everybody wanted to marry us, so we got our first marriage was 2011, maybe, in Pennsylvania. No, 2013 in Pennsylvania. The family there said, "We want you to get married here," and this was the most beautiful wedding. Oh my gosh! And then we got married here at the church, and then we get married someplace else.
We got married. Hold on. We got in Panama City. That one. No, that wasn't you. That wasn't you. That was somebody else.
Yeah, that was somebody else. So it was, but it was again, it was offering yourself up for people to come together. We love it. We love that, and I must say that. So being in relationship with one another has been very positive, because for me it was the first time entering a relationship where somebody understood me, because Karen is also very spiritual and she's had these callings in her life. And so when you're in a relationship with someone that doesn't understand that, it often for them seems crazy. Well, we got into relationship, we could be crazy together, and it was normal, and so we wouldn't have done all of these things if we didn't have that.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah.
So as we think about closing out, is there a story or a situation or something we haven't talked about that?
One of the things that was so important in our lives growing up, my brother, my sister, and I, is family is the most important thing, and that's what they taught us. When there was the march in Fayetteville, North Carolina, during the Civil Rights. It was right after the girls were bombed in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. So a lot of black colleges and universities around the country were having mock funerals. And so the Fayetteville State University had a march. And I must say, let me just back up for a moment. A very important element of the march that night was the number of military enlistees who joined.
Right.
Because many of the soldiers in Fort Bragg could make their money, but they couldn't buy anything. They couldn't go into a JCPenney's, a Sears, or any of these stores because of integration,
right.
Or lack of integration.
Right.
So that night, a lot of the college students, some of the military, others, whether they were supposed to be there, known or unknown or not, were there. But anyway, that night, they all met in our backyard. And my dad had everyone leave all their valuables, and they walked off from there. My brother, who was young, walked with my dad. So they all marched up Person Street, headed towards the market house, where we actually have an ancestor who was sold, great-great-great-grandfather, to a family in Mississippi that one of our family members did the research and found them. And we all look alike. It's very interesting. Sidebar. But when the marchers got up close to the market house, the police turned the dogs on them, hoses on them, and my dad said even threw snakes into the crowd. I mean, it was just bizarre. And my father had organized his friends to go to the jailhouse and get people bailed out. And one of his friends had a school bus, and he would pick up the people and bring them to our backyard. So we had this cookout going all night long. And no matter how much they were battered, tattered, beat, whatever, they just had such this euphoric exposure. And that's what I tried to capture in my book, Embers of Glory. And so we had the cafe down the street. And by the middle of the night, we were running out of food. And so Dad, when he came in, he said, go down to the cafe and get this box of frozen frog legs, right? And so that was the only thing left. And so all night I'm running around. I'm like 9 years old, right? And I'm saying, you know what you're eating? You're eating frog legs. So that was my funny moment in the midst of that. But I got to tell you, when they left the house to march off, a black cat, huge, with the greenest eyes, walked into our house. Now, my mom would never have an animal in the house, but she didn't. It was just she and I at that point. And when they all came back, that cat disappeared.
Wow.
I've never tried to answer that. Why, I don't know, but it stayed with us until everyone safely returned, and then we never saw it again.
Wow.
And I remember that, you know. And I think I remember it mostly because I kept waiting for Mom to throw it out the house, and she never did, right? So, yeah, that was the story that I think is an anchor for me, or maybe a stepping stone for me to see the power of when people have faith, when they are willing to step out on something bigger than themselves, that good comes from it. Maybe that was the beginning of me learning a lesson that would be with me the rest of my life.
I think that you get it honest, right? The activism and the love and the organization of things that are right.
Yes.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
You got a mama that's highly educated and classy.
Oh, classy and sassy. And in fact, Karen's birthday and my mom's birthday is the same day.
Yay.
So I think there's a little bit of Mom in Karen, you know. So it's interesting that life continues to go on, and that's what I want to say to anybody. Look, life it can be as exciting as you want to make it, right? We're here to live. We don't know if we're coming back. We don't know what the next step is on this journey. Not in our brain can we figure all that out, and maybe we don't need to, but let's have fun while we're here. Let's do good.
Amen.
Let's love.
Amen. Let's end in that right there. I love it. Thank you so much for coming and doing the interview and sharing your time. I really appreciate it. Did you bring your coin with you?
I sure did.
We'll put the serial number on it and end our time together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and that'll go right on my wall.
Yay.
Yeah.
Can I get a big hug?
You sure can.
I love it.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. You're a blessing. Absolute blessing.